They say money changes people, but I've learned it just reveals who they really are. I'm Nathan, 32, and up until this year, I used to think of myself as the lucky one in my family. Not lucky in the lottery winner kind of way, but lucky to have clawed my way out of the hole we were all born in. I grew up in a small town where ambition got you mocked, and success meant someone else felt entitled to a piece of it. Still, I worked hard, got into college on a scholarship, and after years of quiet grinding, I landed a solid job in cybersecurity. I kept to myself mostly, paid off my loans, started saving. I didn't brag or flash my lifestyle. I just helped where I could. That's probably where the problem began. It started with small things, my cousin Levi borrowing a few hundred here, my aunt asking for help with groceries, or someone's car breaking down and me covering repairs just this once. I'd tell myself it was fine. Family helps family. But there's a difference between helping and being picked apart like a carcass. I didn't see that yet. Not until this past summer. Every July, we hold a big family cookout at my mom's house. Burgers on the grill, kids running through sprinklers, my uncle telling the same 3 stories he's told since 2005. It's tradition. I usually help cover the cost because no one else steps up. Fine. But this year, I noticed something strange even before the smoke hit the air. Levi pulled into the driveway in a brand new lifted truck with all the bells and whistles. His wife, Tasha, stepped out in designer sandals with her nails freshly done and a $1,200 iPhone in her hand. I recognized the model because I'd been eyeing it myself but hadn't justified the splurge. They smiled big and loud, like the kind of people who think confidence erases debt. Levi clapped me on the back. Nate the Great. Still saving the world from hackers? I gave him a tight smile. Still trying. He laughed like I'd told the best joke in the world. Must be working, judging by that parking spot out front. He nodded toward my modest but reliable Camry. That was Levi complimenting you with just enough acid to make your stomach turn. The cookout went as expected. People ate, laughed, drank too much. Levi was louder than usual, cracking jokes at my expense, my single status, my apartment, even my Spotify playlist when it accidentally connected to the backyard speakers. Bro still listens to Coldplay like we're stuck in 2009, he yelled across the yard. I laughed it off, but something inside me twisted. There was an edge to it this time. Like he wasn't just being obnoxious, he was testing boundaries. Later that evening, I went inside to grab my laptop bag. I'd stashed it in the guest room closet for safekeeping. I'd transferred some funds earlier that week and hadn't had a chance to move them into my business savings. The bag had a physical hard token I use for authentication, plus my backup external drive and some paperwork. But when I opened the closet, my bag was gone. I froze. The closet was shut, exactly how I'd left it. But my bag, the one I never let out of my sight, was missing. I checked the bed, the drawers, under the furniture. Nothing. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I quietly asked my mom and aunt if they'd moved anything. They hadn't. My palms started to sweat. I went to Levi. Hey, did you see a black laptop bag in the guest room? I asked, keeping my tone casual. He tilted his head, smiling. Nope. Why? It's just missing. Had some stuff in it I need. He shrugged, took a sip of beer, and said, maybe you misplaced it, Mr. Cybersecurity. Then he turned away before I could respond. That night, I went home early. I didn't want to accuse anyone without proof. I called my bank. That's when my stomach dropped. A transfer had been made for digits, not earth-shattering, but still money I'd worked hard for. It went to an unknown Venmo account that had used my backup email and authorization token. Someone had used my stuff to set it up. Someone who knew what they were doing, or at least had watched me closely enough to fake it. I sat in silence for almost 2 hours. I didn't cry. I didn't punch anything. I just sat, thinking. I'd spent my life trying to be the better man, the guy who rose above, who didn't make waves. But I finally saw the truth. Being the better man in a pit full of piranhas just means you bleed slower. 2 days later, Levi texted me. Not about the bag, not to check on me. Just a photo of him holding a new set of wireless headphones, captioned treating myself. I responded with a thumbs up. By the end of the week, I confirmed it. The account the money had gone to was linked to a phone number that matched Levi's burner. He'd used it before in some dropshipping business scam he tried to rope me into last year. It was clumsy, honestly. Amateur stuff. But it worked because I trusted him enough to leave my guard down. I debated calling the cops. But then I remembered something. Levi's wife, Tasha, was on probation for a fraud charge a few years back. Her record was clean for now. Any involvement in financial theft would land her right back in hot water. And she knew it. I called her. "Hey, Tasha," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Just wanted to ask, did you or Levi happen to grab a laptop bag at the cookout?" Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "Why would we do that?" "Not accusing you," I said. "Just trying to track it down before I file a report. You know, once the police get involved, it gets complicated. Especially if anything illegal happened. But if it's a misunderstanding, I'd rather keep it between us." Another pause. "I'll talk to Levi." An hour later, my bag magically reappeared on my mom's porch. No note. No explanation. But it was empty, files wiped, token missing. The nerve of it made me laugh. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I waited. A week passed. Then I got an invite to another cookout, this time at Levi's place. Supposedly a redo to make up for the bad vibes at the last one. I RSVP'd yes. The day of, I arrived early with a smile and a bottle of wine. I mingled. I laughed. I even let Levi tease me a little more, this time about being paranoid and too uptight. I waited until after dinner, when the crowd was tipsy and full, sprawled across patio furniture, breathing heavy with beer and brisket. That's when I excused myself and went upstairs. I didn't take long. Just 5 minutes to drop a single USB stick behind a certain dresser. Just long enough to trigger the prearranged signal from a friend in law enforcement. One who owed me a favor after I helped him track down a ransomware trail last year. I had everything I needed: IP logs, data access records, the spoof trail they left behind. Back downstairs, Levi gave me that smug grin, as if none of it mattered. But when I stood up and looked him in the eye, he raised an eyebrow. "What, you going somewhere?" "Yeah," I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. "I think you'll appreciate the surprise I left upstairs." Tasha choked on her drink. Levi tilted his head. "What surprise?" They all laughed. Right until tires screeched outside. The kind of screech that says someone isn't here to join the barbecue. Red and blue lights flashed against the windows. Shouts came from the front lawn. A knock, loud, demanding, rattled the door. The music cut out. Silence rippled through the backyard. And then chaos. The first person to move was Tasha. She nearly tripped over the fire pit trying to get inside, eyes wide, whispering something to Levi under her breath. I stood by the grill, casually swirling what was left of my wine, watching it all unfold like a scene from a movie. A very predictable, deeply satisfying movie. The front door opened before the officers even had to knock again. One stepped in with a clipboard. The other followed with a camera already rolling. I recognized both Officer Mahoney and Detective Claire. Not only had they handled the case I helped with last year, but they also owed me one. And they were very thorough. Tasha's voice rang out first. "There must be a mistake." Mahoney didn't even blink. "Ma'am, your name was attached to a digital transaction involving unauthorized access to protected personal accounts. We have a warrant to search the premises and seize any connected devices." Levi stood frozen, jaw tight. "Wait, this is insane. This is harassment." He pointed at me. "He's making this up. He's trying to embarrass me in front of my family." "Oh, I'm just the IT guy," I said with a shrug, feigning confusion. "You know, paranoid, uptight, all that. Not the type to notice when someone uses my multi-factor authentication token and fakes my credentials. Not at all." Claire held up the warrant and nodded toward the stairs. 2 other officers entered behind them, gloves on, straight to the second floor. Levi finally snapped. "You set us up, man. You planned this." That got a few murmurs from the crowd. My aunt clutched her purse like she thought she might be next. My uncle, who had just refilled his plate, slowly slid it onto the table without a word. I kept my voice steady. "No, Levi, you set yourself up. I just stopped cleaning up after you." Tasha was pacing now, muttering about lawyers, about this being nothing. But I caught the tremble in her hands. She knew what was on the line. The crowd began to disperse. Nobody wanted to be part of whatever this was. Even the nosiest cousins made polite excuses and backed away like the patio was radioactive. I don't blame them. They'd been fed Levi's stories for years about how I was stuck up, stingy, too good for family. And for years, I let them believe it, because it was easier than dragging everyone into the ugly truth. But tonight, the truth dragged itself into the front lawn in a cruiser with sirens still flashing. Officer Mahoney called Levi and Tasha over to the side. They weren't handcuffed yet, but they were being questioned under the awning, out of earshot. I saw Levi waving his arms, defensive, trying to act like none of this was a big deal. Tasha had gone quiet, arms crossed tightly, eyes darting around as if she were calculating escape routes. That's when my mom appeared beside me. I didn't even hear her come up. "Nathan," she said quietly, "what is going on?" I glanced at her. Her face was pale, unsure. She looked smaller than I remembered. "You want the polite version or the real one?" Her lips parted. No words came out. "Levi stole from me," I said flatly. "Not the first time. But it's the first time I stopped pretending it didn't happen. But he's your cousin." "Yeah," I said, setting my glass down. "And I was his bank account." She opened her mouth to speak again, but I stopped her with a look. "Don't defend him. Please. Not this time." A beat of silence. Then another. "I didn't know," she finally said. "I swear I didn't know." I nodded. Maybe she didn't. Or maybe she just didn't want to know. The officers came down a few minutes later with Levi's tablet, Tasha's phone, and a small USB drive I recognized instantly, the one missing from my laptop bag. Claire gave me a glance on the way out, just a flicker of acknowledgement. They didn't arrest them on the spot. These things take time, but I knew the evidence was strong. And Levi and Tasha knew it, too. The panic in their eyes said everything. Levi tried to follow the officers to their car, asking questions, insisting there was a misunderstanding. But they weren't listening anymore. The show was over. The lights dimmed. Curtains drawn. I left without saying goodbye. As I walked past Levi's new truck in the driveway, leased, not owned, I knew from the documents I'd peeked at, I couldn't help but tap the hood lightly with my knuckles. "Nice ride," I muttered. "Shame if it ends up as evidence." The moment I got home, my phone lit up. First, a text from Tasha. "You're disgusting. You've always been jealous of us. I hope you're proud of yourself." Then one from Levi. "I'll fix this. You're gonna regret messing with me." I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I had something better. Silence. The kind of silence that comes after you finally stop allowing people to chew through your boundaries like termites through floorboards. But I wasn't done. I still had one more move to make. Something they didn't see coming. Something personal. And it was waiting in the envelope I'd slipped into the glove box of my car earlier that day, labeled with Levi's full name, and the date he signed a very specific, very traceable lease agreement. The kind I'd co-signed 2 years ago, back when he said he just needed a leg up. The kind of lease where, if one party defaulted and the co-signer had paid most of it for over a year, they were entitled to reclaim the property under breach of contract. All I had to do was drop off the letter. A copy had already been notarized. This wasn't about just getting even anymore. This was about finally cutting the cord for good. I didn't sleep much that night. Even after the officers left, even after the house had gone quiet and Levi's backyard party had scattered like roaches under a flipped light switch, I couldn't settle. I kept turning the envelope over in my hands, thick paper, cream-colored, edges slightly creased from the glove box. I'd had it prepared for months. I just never thought I'd actually use it. At first, co-signing that lease felt like a gesture of good faith. Levi had come to me with this big story about turning things around. He and Tasha wanted to move into a better neighborhood, get out of the cycle of bouncing between landlords, maybe even start a legitimate business. I should have known better. But I told myself I was helping them help themselves. That's what people like me do, right? The responsible one. The solid cousin. The guy who always shows up. Except the payments kept slipping, then disappearing. And every time I brought it up, Levi had a new excuse, a bad client, a banking error, a friend who was supposed to pay him back and flaked. I ended up covering their rent more often than not, afraid missing a payment would hit my own credit. It was like trying to hold a roof up with my bare hands while they danced on it. So I documented everything. Quietly. Every payment. Every excuse. Every instance I transferred money from my account to cover their side. I even kept screen recordings of our texts. Months passed, and eventually, I consulted a friend, an attorney I trusted, who told me exactly what to prepare if I ever wanted out. That envelope? It was the legal key to evicting Levi and Tasha from the very house they flaunted at every cookout, every gathering, every smug social media post. And tonight, I wasn't just ready, I was done. The next morning, I pulled into their driveway just after 9 a.m. I didn't want to see them. That wasn't the point. I wasn't doing this for drama. I was doing it because some people only understand consequences when they show up in the form of a signature and a deadline. I slipped the envelope into the mail slot, took a photo for documentation, and left without knocking. By noon, I'd already received 2 calls, both ignored, and one voicemail from Tasha that started with, "Are you serious right now?" and ended in what I can only describe as shrieking static. I didn't listen to the whole thing. By 3 p.m., Levi had texted a photo of a crumpled envelope and said, "You're ruining everything. Over a couple thousand? You're sick." I didn't reply. At 6:15, I got a group text from my mom. "Family meeting tonight. Please come. We need to talk this through like adults." I stared at the message for a full minute before responding. "I'll be there. Bring everyone." I arrived at my mom's place just as the sun was setting. The living room was already full. My aunts, uncles, a few cousins, Levi slouched in the corner with a hood over his head, Tasha pacing like a caged animal, and my mom sitting rigidly on the couch with a tray of untouched cookies in front of her. Family meeting, indeed. I walked in without a word, dropped my coat over a chair, and sat down like I had nothing but time. It was my Uncle George who spoke first. "Nathan, what's going on? Your cousin said you. He said you're trying to get them kicked out of their house." I nodded slowly. "I'm not trying. I am." Gasps. Tasha actually scoffed. Levi muttered something I didn't catch. Mom looked at me with that tired disappointment she reserved for family drama she didn't want to be part of. "Why would you do something so extreme? You two grew up like brothers." "Because I'm tired," I said. "Because I've paid their rent for 14 out of the last 19 months. Because Levi stole from me. And because no one here seems to care until the consequences land in their own backyard." The silence after that wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, suffocating. Tasha threw up her hands. "You're acting like we're criminals." "You are," I said, finally meeting her eyes. "You accessed my accounts. That's wire fraud. You wiped my files. That's tampering. You used my trust to keep your lifestyle afloat. That's manipulation. And now, you're reaping the reward." Levi stood suddenly. "You think you're better than us? Just because you've got a degree and some boring job? You're not special, Nate. You're just petty." I stayed seated. Calm. Too calm. "No, Levi. I'm just finally finished pretending that being generous means being a doormat." Mom tried to intervene again. "Sweetheart, please. We can fix this. Maybe if we talk to the landlord." "I'm the landlord," I snapped, and the room went still. I hadn't meant to say it like that, but it was the truth. See, part of what I'd done with my savings and the extra income from the side consulting gigs I never told the family about was invest. Quietly. Smartly. And one of those investments had been in the property Levi and Tasha rented. The owner had wanted out, and I saw an opportunity. I bought it anonymously through an LLC with a friend's help. They never knew. Until now. Levi's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "You've been living in my property," I said. "On my dime. And now, you violated that lease and stolen from me. So yes, you're being evicted. You've got 2 weeks to vacate. And if you so much as touch another dime of mine, I'll see you in court." Tasha sat down hard, like her legs had given up. No one spoke after that. I stood, put my coat on, and just before I left, I paused by the doorway. "Oh," I said without turning around, "you'll be receiving notice soon about the outstanding utilities I've covered in your name. That's separate." Then I walked out. Outside, the air was crisp, almost sharp. My chest felt tight, but not in a bad way. Like I'd finally exhaled after holding my breath for far too long. But as I reached my car, my phone buzzed again. Not Levi this time. Not Tasha. It was a cousin I hadn't heard from in years. The message read, "Hey man, just heard what happened. I need to talk to you. It's about Uncle George. And your mom. Something weird's been going on." I stared at it, pulse quickening. I hadn't expected this. Not now. Not when I thought the storm was clearing. I stood in the driveway for a long moment, phone in hand, that message staring back at me like a crack forming in glass I thought had finally stopped splintering. "It's about Uncle George. And your mom. Something weird's been going on." I had come for closure. Finality. Revenge, sure, but clean, surgical, overdue revenge. The kind that wraps up neatly, with consequences and consequences only. But this? This felt like the start of something else. Still, I couldn't ignore it. So I texted back. "What's going on?" The typing bubble appeared, then vanished. Then appeared again. Then finally, "You need to see this for yourself. You free tomorrow morning?" I agreed to meet at a cafe across town, neutral ground. No chance of running into anyone else. No family photos on the walls. No familiar eyes watching from behind counters. The next morning, I showed up 5 minutes early. I always do. Aaron, my cousin on my dad's side, was already there, seated at the back, nervously picking at a blueberry muffin. I hadn't seen him since our grandfather's funeral. He'd always kept his distance from the rest of the family, worked construction jobs up north, and mostly stayed out of the drama. The fact that he was reaching out now told me this wasn't gossip. It was something real. He slid a manila envelope across the table. "What is it?" I asked. "Stuff I found when I was helping Uncle George clean out the garage last month." He asked me to burn it. I didn't. I opened it slowly. Inside were copies of old bank records, receipts, scans of checks made out from my accounts. Several of them forged, my signature perfect, but not mine. Some dated back 3 years. Others more recent. But they all had one thing in common. They were processed through a shared bank account I didn't even know existed. Aaron leaned in. "Look at the name on the joint account." I did. My stomach turned. Margaret Ellis. My mother. I flipped through the pages again, my hands going cold. A slow numbness spread through me as the realization settled. For years, my mom had quietly siphoned money through an account I never authorized, under the guise of helping the family, I assumed. Rent here, a bill there. A small loan she never mentioned. All backed by my identity, my income, my credit. "Oh God," I muttered. Aaron looked uncomfortable. "I didn't know if I should tell you. But after what happened with Levi, I figured you deserve the full picture." I sat back, dazed. This wasn't just betrayal. This was systemic. Calculated. A long con. My mother, the woman who taught me to save, who praised my responsibility, who cried when I bought her a new refrigerator, had been skimming off me behind the scenes. Quietly. Regularly. Enough that it added up. "I thought she didn't know," I whispered. "What?" "Last night. She said she didn't know what Levi had done." I looked up at Aaron. "But she did. She's been doing it." Aaron nodded grimly. "They all knew. George helped set up the account. Levi bragged about it once when he was drunk, said your money was basically family funds." My jaw clenched. "How long?" 5 years. Maybe more. I felt like I couldn't breathe. All the emergencies. The times I bailed people out. The lost checks, the unexplained withdrawals I chalked up to error. I thought I was paranoid. I thought I was just being cautious. But I wasn't cautious enough. I left the cafe in a fog, the folder tucked under my arm like a loaded weapon. My thoughts raced. Fury flared, then dulled. I felt hollow, betrayed in a way I hadn't even thought possible. Not by a cousin or a sibling, but by the person who'd raised me, who told me to trust her, who always made me feel like I was part of something larger, family. By the time I got home, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to finish what I started. First, I made copies of everything, paper and digital. I sent encrypted backups to 3 different locations and added password locks just in case. I pulled every statement I could find from the last 6 years and began highlighting the transactions that matched what Aaron had shown me. It was methodical, cold, necessary. Then I called my lawyer. "I need to file fraud charges, possibly embezzlement. I have evidence, names, documents." There was a long pause on the other end. Then, "Nathan, this is going to be messy. Are you sure?" I didn't even blink. "I'm done paying for everyone else's mess." The next step was the hardest, but it had to be done. I drove to my mom's house that evening. The same house where every Christmas photo was taken, where I learned to ride a bike, where I first brought home a report card with straight A's and she hugged me like I'd saved the world. She opened the door in slippers, her face lighting up for a moment before freezing. "Nathan?" I held up the folder. "We need to talk." I didn't go inside. I made her read the paperwork on the porch under the same porch light that used to guide me home after curfew. Her eyes moved over each page slowly, then faster, then with trembling hands. When she finished, she looked up at me, pale. "Nathan, it wasn't like that. It was just temporary. I was going to pay it back." I raised a hand. "Don't. Please. I only did it for the family," she whispered. "You never asked what we needed. You just assumed throwing money at us was enough." "You stole from me," I said. "You lied. You let them treat me like a stranger while you emptied my accounts." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't think you'd find out." And there it was. Not guilt. Not remorse. Just fear of being caught. I took a shaky breath. "You have 7 days to repay what you can. After that, the lawyer files. And Mom, don't call me again. We're done." "Nathan, please," she whispered. "I'm your mother." "No," I said, turning away. "You were." And I walked back to my car. The drive home was quiet. No music. No distractions. Just the hum of the engine and the distant echo of what had been my family shattering for good. I knew they'd spin it. Call me cruel, selfish, heartless. Let them. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to explain or defend myself. I was done being the reliable one, the fixer, the background wallet. I filed the paperwork that Friday. Levi and Tasha were served formal charges for cyber fraud. Uncle George received notice of pending investigation for aiding financial manipulation. And my mother, Margaret Ellis, was hit with a court summons and a request for repayment totaling just under $68,000. I changed my number, locked my accounts, cut ties completely. It's been 7 months. They're still dealing with the fallout. I know because I get updates from Aaron, who ended up testifying in the case. He's doing better now. Moved away. Started fresh. Sometimes we talk. Not often, but enough. As for me, I'm okay. I'm not the same person I was before the cookout. Not softer. Not harder, either. Just aware. Awake. I go to therapy. I sleep better. I don't flinch when my phone buzzes anymore. And my money? Every cent stays exactly where I put it. I still get the occasional message from extended relatives, half guilt, half blame, but I don't read them. They're just echoes now. Faint, distant. Because the truth is, sometimes family is just another word for people who feel entitled to you. And sometimes, the only way to protect yourself is to finally say no. For good.